When we say the mind speaks, when distractions sleep, we are talking about a very deep truth of human life. Throughout the day, your mind is constantly busy, not because it wants to be, but because you keep feeding it noise. From the moment you wake up, there is activity, notifications, messages, responsibilities, deadlines, conversations, expectations. You move from one task to another, one role to another. You become a professional, a family member, a friend, a problem solver. And in all of this, there is hardly any space left to simply sit with yourself. So what does the mind do? It waits. It waits patiently, quietly, without complaint. It knows that during the day, you won't listen. You are too occupied proving, achieving, adjusting, and surviving. But at night, especially between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., something changes. The world slows down. The distractions that kept your mind busy finally fall asleep. There are no calls to answer, no meetings to attend, no people to impress. And suddenly, the mind gets its chance. This is not the mind trying to trouble you. This is the mind finally getting permission to speak. Think of it like a child who has been silent the whole day because the parents were busy. When the house becomes quiet at night, the child gently pulls your hand and says, "Can we talk now?" That is exactly what your mind is doing. During the day, you may say, "I don't have time to think about this. I'll deal with it later. It's not a big issue. I'm fine." But the mind does not understand postponement. It understands honesty. It understands attention. So when you suppress thoughts, emotions, worries, regrets, or questions during the day, they don't disappear. They simply wait for silence. And silence arrives at night. That is why the moment you lie down and close your eyes, your thoughts open up. Conversations from years ago replay. Decisions you avoided come back. Questions about life, purpose, relationships, and direction suddenly feel louder than ever. Many people think waking up at this hour means something is wrong with them. But often, it means something inside you wants to be heard. Your mind is not your enemy, it is your messenger. It is saying, "You have been running all day, but you have not paused to understand what you are feeling." And because you did not listen when you were awake, it wakes you up when you are asleep, not to punish you, but to communicate with you. There is also another layer to this. During the day, your logical mind is in control. You analyze, justify, and rationalize everything. You convince yourself that certain things don't matter, that you are overreacting, that you should be strong. But at night, logic rests, and when logic rests, truth rises. That is why emotions feel more intense at night. Sadness feels heavier, a loneliness feels deeper, and questions feel more urgent. It is not because the problem became bigger at night. It is because the filters are gone. This is also why people who are constantly distracted during the day are the ones who struggle the most at night. When you fill every empty moment with your phone, music, social media, or work, you give your mind no space to process life. So it chooses the only time available when you cannot escape. In that moment, there is no scrolling to distract you, no conversation to hide behind. There is just you and your thoughts. And for many people, that is unfamiliar territory. But here is the important thing to understand. Waking up at that hour is not a weakness. It is a sign of awareness trying to emerge. Your mind is saying, "Slow down, look at your life, something needs attention." It could be emotional exhaustion, unresolved stress, fear about the future, or even a quiet desire for meaning. The mind does not speak in words, it speaks in restlessness. And if you keep ignoring that restlessness, it grows louder. Instead of fighting this moment, try observing it. Instead of saying, "Why can't I sleep?" ask, "What is my mind trying to tell me?" You will notice that often the same thoughts repeat night after night. That repetition is not random. Repetition means importance. It means there is something you have been avoiding during the day that needs acknowledgement. Once you begin to listen, truly listen, the mind slowly relaxes because it finally feels seen. So remember this: when distractions sleep, the mind wakes up, not to disturb you, but to guide you, not to scare you, but to show you where healing is needed. And the day you learn to give your mind some silence during the day, the night will slowly return that silence back to you. When we talk about unresolved emotions waking you up, we are touching one of the most honest and uncomfortable truths of human life. Emotions do not disappear just because we decide not to feel them. They don't vanish because we stay busy, smile more, or tell ourselves to be strong. Emotions are like unfinished letters written to your heart. If they are not read, they remain open. And at night, when the noise of the world fades, those open letters begin to demand attention. During the day, you are trained to function, not to feel. You wake up with responsibilities waiting for you. You have roles to play and expectations to meet. So you learn, slowly and unconsciously, how to push emotions aside. You tell yourself there is no time to feel tired, hurt, disappointed, or confused. You say, "I'll deal with this later," but later never comes. You laugh in public, work efficiently, respond politely, and appear calm, but inside something remains incomplete. A conversation you never had, an apology you never received, a loss you never grieved properly, a dream you quietly let go of. These unresolved emotions don't shout during the day because they know you won't listen. They wait. Night is different. At night, your defenses are low. You are no longer performing for anyone. You are no longer distracting yourself with activity. When you lie down, your body relaxes, but your emotions finally rise. This is why you wake up suddenly, without any clear reason, with a heavy feeling in your chest or a restless mind. It is not the body waking you up, it is the emotional weight you have been carrying silently. Unresolved emotions don't follow office hours, they follow honesty. And honesty usually appears in the quiet. Many people misunderstand this and try to force sleep. They check the clock, feel frustrated, and think, "Why is this happening again?" But the more you resist, the louder the emotions become. Because resistance is another form of suppression. Your emotions are not trying to harm you. They are trying to complete something that was left unfinished. Imagine a door that was never fully closed. Every small wind will make it creak. That creaking is not the problem, the open door is. Often, the emotions that wake us up are the ones we judged ourselves for having. Anger you thought you shouldn't feel. Sadness you believed was weakness. Loneliness you were embarrassed to admit. Guilt you buried under productivity. We are taught to be emotionally disciplined, but we are rarely taught to be emotionally honest. So we become experts at hiding feelings, even from ourselves. But the body and mind remember what you try to forget. At night, They gently remove the mask and say, "This is how you really feel." There is also a reason why the same emotional patterns repeat at night. If you notice carefully, it is often the same themes that return: certain people, certain memories, certain fears. This repetition is not overthinking. It is emotional backlog. It means something inside you is asking for closure. Closure does not always mean a solution. Sometimes it simply means acknowledgement. When you allow yourself to say, "Yes, this hurt me," or "Yes, I am still affected," the intensity slowly reduces. Emotions calm down when they are validated, not when they are denied. Another important aspect is that unresolved emotions often show up as physical restlessness. You may not be consciously thinking about anything specific, yet your sleep is disturbed. This happens because emotions live in the body as much as in the mind. Stress tightens muscles. Suppressed grief weighs on the chest. Anxiety speeds up the heart. When you lie down, your body finally stops moving, and that stored emotional energy becomes noticeable. The body says, "You can't run anymore. Now feel." People sometimes ask, "Why can't I just move on?" The truth is, moving on without processing is not moving on. It is moving away, and whatever you move away from follows you quietly. Waking up at night is often a sign that something in you is tired of being ignored. It wants care, not criticism. It wants space, not pressure. It wants understanding, not control. Instead of judging yourself for waking up, she tries sitting with your emotions for a moment. You don't have to solve them at 3 a.m. Just notice them. Ask yourself, "What am I feeling right now?" Not why, just what. You will be surprised how powerful this simple awareness can be. When emotions feel heard, they soften. When they soften, the mind relaxes. And when the mind relaxes, sleep slowly returns. So remember, unresolved emotions don't wake you up to punish you. They wake you up to heal you. They are not signs of weakness. They are signs of depth. And the more gently you listen to them during your waking hours, the less loudly they will knock during the night. When we say stress is not the enemy, avoidance is, it changes the entire way we look at our inner struggle. Most people believe stress is something bad that must be eliminated, something that disturbs peace and steals sleep. So they fight it, they suppress it, they distract themselves from it. But stress itself is not the problem. Stress is a signal. It is the mind and body saying, "Something matters to you." The real damage begins when you refuse to listen to that signal and instead choose to avoid it. Throughout the day, stress shows up in subtle ways: a tight jaw while working, a heavy breath while thinking about responsibilities, a constant rush even when there is no urgency. But instead of asking what this stress is trying to tell us, we label it as weakness and push forward. We say things like, "I don't have time to feel stressed," or "Others have it worse, so I should be fine." This comparison silences our own experience. We become productive but disconnected, functional but emotionally exhausted, and the more we avoid stress, the more power it quietly gains over us. Avoidance feels comfortable in the moment. You keep yourself busy, you scroll endlessly, you overwork, you laugh more loudly than necessary, you fill every silence. On the surface, life seems under control, but internally, stress does not disappear. It waits, it collects, it settles into your nervous system. And when night comes, especially between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., there is no escape left. The world is quiet, your distractions are gone, and the stress you avoided all day finally steps forward. This is why people often wake up at night with a racing heart or a restless mind, even when nothing dramatic is happening in that moment. It is not sudden stress, it is accumulated stress. Stress that never had a place to go, stress that was never acknowledged. Think of it like pressure inside a container. If you never release it slowly, it eventually forces its way out. Nighttime awakenings are often that release. The problem is not that you are stressed. The problem is that you never gave stress a healthy outlet. Stress wants expression, not suppression. It wants understanding, not resistance. When you keep telling yourself to just relax, without addressing what is causing the tension, the mind feels unheard. And an unheard mind does not rest. It keeps alert even when the body is tired. That alertness is what wakes you up in the middle of the night. Another reason avoidance becomes dangerous is that it teaches your mind to stay on guard. When you avoid dealing with problems, your mind doesn't relax because it feels responsible for reminding you. It keeps replaying scenarios, worries, and possibilities, especially at night. From the mind's perspective, it is not overthinking, it is protecting you. It is saying, if you don't handle this during the day, I will keep you awake until you do. Sleep becomes light, fragmented, and fragile because the mind believes there is unfinished business. Many people try to escape this by blaming sleep itself. They look for techniques, remedies, or distractions to force rest. But forced rest does not work when the mind feels unresolved. True rest comes from resolution, or at least honest engagement. Even naming your stress, saying, "This is what's bothering me," reduces its intensity. Stress grows in silence and shrinks in awareness. It is also important to understand that avoidance often comes from fear, not laziness. Fear of failure, fear of conflict, fear of disappointment, fear of facing emotions that feel overwhelming. So instead of dealing with the root cause, we delay. But delayed stress doesn't disappear, it multiplies. At night, when you wake up, it may feel like your mind is attacking you, but in reality, it is asking you to stop running. Stress, when faced, can actually become a guide. It shows you what needs attention, what needs boundaries, and what needs change. But when avoided, it turns into anxiety, restlessness, and sleep disruption. The same stress that could have helped you adjust your life becomes the reason your nights feel heavy. When you begin to meet stress with curiosity instead of resistance, something shifts. You stop asking, "How do I get rid of this?" and start asking, "What is this asking of me?" Sometimes the answer is rest. Sometimes it is honesty. Sometimes it is a difficult conversation. And sometimes it is simply self-compassion. Each time you respond, instead of avoid, your nervous system learns that it doesn't need to stay alert at night. So if you wake up in those quiet hours, don't see it as failure, see it as feedback. Your mind is not broken, it is burdened. And the moment you stop treating stress as the enemy and start treating avoidance as the real issue, healing begins. When stress is heard during the day, the mind finally allows itself to sleep at night. When we say the body remembers what you try to forget, we are acknowledging a truth that goes far beyond memory in the mind. The body is not just a physical structure that carries you from one place to another. It is also a silent storage of experiences, emotions, and moments that were never fully processed. You may forget events consciously, you may move on logically, you may even convince yourself that something no longer affects you. But the body does not forget. It remembers everything in its own language. Throughout life, when something overwhelms you emotionally and you don't feel safe or supported enough to process it, the body steps in to protect you. It tightens, numbs, or braces itself. At that moment, this response is helpful. It helps you survive. It allows you to continue functioning when your emotions feel too heavy. But survival is not the same as healing. What the body holds for protection today becomes tension tomorrow if it is never released. And that tension doesn't disappear with time, it waits for the right moment to surface. During the day, your body is constantly in motion. You walk, work, talk, sit, and move from task to task. Her movement distracts you from the signals your body is sending. A stiff neck, shallow breathing, clenched shoulders, these become so normal that you stop noticing them. You adapt to discomfort instead of listening to it. But at night, when you lie down and become still, your body finally has space to speak. And it speaks through restlessness, discomfort, and sudden awakenings. Many people wake up at night and think something is wrong with their sleep, but often it is the body releasing what it has been holding all day or for many years. Trauma, stress, grief, fear, and unresolved pain are not just psychological experiences, they are physiological ones. They get stored in muscles, in breath patterns, in the nervous system. That is why even when your mind feels calm, your body may still feel tense. The body operates on a deeper timeline than the mind. There is also a reason why certain memories or emotions trigger physical sensations. You might feel a tight chest when thinking about a past relationship, or a knot in your stomach when recalling a failure. These are not coincidences. The body associates experiences with sensations, and when those sensations are never acknowledged, they remain active beneath the surface. At night, when external stimulation reduces, the body no longer needs to stay alert to the world, so it turns inward. That inward attention brings stored sensations into awareness. Waking up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. is often when the nervous system shifts states. The body moves out of deep rest and into a lighter phase. In that transition, whatever is unresolved can emerge. This might feel like anxiety, unexplained sadness, or physical discomfort without a clear cause. It can be confusing and even frightening. But this is not the body malfunctioning. This is the body communicating. One of the reasons the body remembers what you try to forget, because forgetting is a mental act, not a physical one. You can tell yourself you are fine, but the body responds to truth, not reassurance. If your nervous system has learned to stay on guard due to past stress or trauma, it doesn't relax just because time has passed. It relaxes when it feels safe. Nighttime, ironically, can feel unsafe for a body that has learned vigilance. In the quiet, without distractions, the body checks in, am I safe now? If the answer is uncertain, sleep becomes shallow. People often blame themselves for this. They think they are weak for still being affected by something that happened long ago. But healing is not about willpower, it is about reconnection. The body does not want you to relive pain, it wants you to release it. And release begins with awareness. When you wake up at night and feel something in your body, the instinct is to distract yourself or force sleep. But sometimes, the most healing thing you can do is simply notice. Notice your breath. Notice where your body feels tight. Notice without judgment. The body softens when it is met with gentleness. Slow breathing, stillness, and self-compassion send a signal of safety to the nervous system. Over time, this teaches the body that it no longer needs to hold on. The memories don't need to be erased, they need to be integrated. When the body feels supported, it lets go naturally. So when you wake up in those early hours, remember this: your body is not betraying you. It is protecting you the only way it knows how. It is reminding you of something that needs care, not avoidance. And the more you learn to listen to your body during the day, through rest, awareness, and kindness, the less it will need to speak so loudly at night. When we say this is the hour of self-reflection, we are pointing to a time when masks fall away and honesty becomes unavoidable. During the day, you live in reaction mode. You react to people, to responsibilities, to expectations, to circumstances. There is very little space to pause and ask yourself how you truly feel or what you truly want. Life moves fast, and you move with it. But between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., life slows down enough for you to finally meet yourself. In those early hours, there is no audience. No one is watching you. No one needs anything from you. There is no role to perform and no image to maintain. And because of that, your inner world begins to surface. This is why thoughts at this time feel deeper and more meaningful. You are not distracted by urgency or noise. You are alone with your awareness. That solitude can feel uncomfortable, but it is also powerful. It is the space where self-reflection naturally happens. Self-reflection is not the same as overthinking, even though they can feel similar. Overthinking is repetitive and anxious. It circles the same fears without clarity. Self-reflection is quiet and revealing. It helps you see patterns, truths, and emotions you've been avoiding. At night, when your logical defenses are lowered, your mind becomes more honest. It no longer filters thoughts based on what is acceptable or convenient. It shows you what is real. That is why questions about life direction, relationships, purpose, and meaning often arise during this time. You may suddenly realize that you are tired in a way sleep cannot fix, or that you have been compromising too much of yourself to keep others comfortable, or that something you once wanted deeply no longer aligns with who you are becoming. These realizations don't come during the day because the day doesn't allow silence. Reflection needs stillness, and the hours before dawn offer exactly that. This is also why many people feel emotional at this time. Emotions that were muted by business begin to surface. Not because they are new, but because you finally have the space to feel them. When you are alone in the quiet, you can no longer avoid your inner dialogue. You hear the questions you've been postponing and the truths you've been postponing accepting. This can feel heavy, but it is also a sign of growth. Awareness often arrives before change. Another reason this hour is powerful for self-reflection is that your mind is less influenced by external validation. During the day, your thoughts are shaped by opinions, comparisons, and expectations. At night, those influences fade. You are not thinking about what you should want. You are sensing what you actually want. You are not thinking about who you should be. You are feeling who you are. That honesty can be unsettling, but it is also freeing. People often try to escape this moment by distracting themselves or forcing sleep. But self reflection is not something to fear, it is something to respect. It is your inner self asking you to pay attention, not to judge, not to fix everything immediately, but to listen. When you listen without resistance, clarity slowly forms. You may not get answers right away, but you begin to ask better questions. And better questions lead to better lives. It is also important to understand that self-reflection doesn't always bring comfort immediately. Sometimes it brings discomfort before peace. Seeing the truth can be painful, especially if it means acknowledging misalignment or emotional neglect. But ignoring truth doesn't make it disappear, it only delays growth. The quiet hours give you the opportunity to gently face what needs attention without external pressure. When you begin to welcome this time, instead of fearing it, your relationship with the night changes. Instead of feeling attacked by your thoughts, you begin to observe them. Instead of feeling restless, you become curious. And curiosity creates distance between you and your thoughts. That distance allows insight to emerge. So when you wake up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., remember that this is not just a disturbance in your sleep. It is an invitation to pause, to reflect, and to reconnect with yourself. The more honestly you reflect during your waking life, the less urgently your mind will need to call you into reflection during the night. When we say that spiritual traditions call this a sacred time, we are not speaking in superstition or mystery for the sake of drama. We are pointing to an observation that has existed across cultures, religions, and philosophies for thousands of years. Long before modern schedules, alarms, and artificial light, human beings lived closer to natural rhythms. They noticed that the hours before sunrise carried a different quality of silence, awareness, and sensitivity. This was not an accidental discovery, it was experiential wisdom passed down through generations. In many spiritual paths, the time between night and dawn is seen as a bridge, neither fully dark nor fully light. It is a transition, and transitions are powerful. They are moments when energy shifts, when awareness is more subtle, and when the mind is less cluttered by external influence. This is why monks, sages, and seekers across traditions chose these hours for prayer, meditation, reflection, and remembrance. They understood that when the world sleeps, the inner world becomes more accessible. One of the reasons this time is considered sacred is because the ego is quieter. During the day, the sense of I is constantly reinforced through roles, responsibilities, achievements, and comparisons. But in the early morning hours, there is nothing to prove and no one to impress. The identity you carry all day loosens its grip. In that loosened state, awareness deepens. You are not thinking about how you appear, you are simply present. That presence allows insights to arise naturally. Spiritual traditions also observed that the mind at this time is more receptive. Thoughts are fewer, but they are clearer. Emotions feel closer to the surface, not because they are stronger, but because there is less noise to cover them. This is why people often experience sudden realizations, clarity, or emotional release during these hours. It feels as though something inside opens up, not dramatically, but gently, like a door that was always there, now unlocked. This sacredness is not limited to one religion or belief system. In many Eastern traditions, the early morning hours are associated with purity of mind and heightened awareness. In other spiritual paths, dawn is symbolic of renewal and divine connection. Even in philosophies that are not religious, silence before sunrise is recognized as a time when consciousness feels more expansive. Different languages, different symbols, but the same human experience. Another reason this time holds spiritual significance is that nature itself is still. There is a deep quiet in the environment. The animals are resting, the air feels calmer. This external stillness influences the inner state. Human beings are deeply affected by their surroundings, even when they are not aware of it. When the environment is calm, the nervous system naturally softens. That softness creates space for contemplation, gratitude, and awareness of something larger than oneself. In modern life, we often lose touch with these rhythms. Artificial light extends the day, screens keep the mind stimulated, and schedules disconnect us from natural cycles. But the body and mind still remember. So when someone wakes up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., it can feel unsettling, but from a spiritual perspective, it can also be seen as an opening. Not a demand to analyze, but an opportunity to simply be, to breathe, to listen. Spiritual traditions never taught that this time should be used for worry or fear. They taught stillness, surrender, and connection. When the mind becomes restless during these hours, it is often because modern life has trained us to fill every quiet moment. We are uncomfortable with silence because we are rarely in it. But silence is not empty. It is full of awareness. And awareness, when allowed, becomes healing. This does not mean that every awakening at this time is a spiritual calling. It means that the potential for depth exists. How you meet that moment matters. If you meet it with resistance, it feels disturbing. If you meet it with gentleness, it can feel grounding. Even simply sitting quietly and observing your breath aligns with what spiritual traditions have honored for centuries. The sacredness of this time is not about doing something extraordinary. It is about being present without distraction. In that presence, you may feel calm, emotional, reflective, or connected. All of these are valid. The sacred is not dramatic. It is subtle. It whispers rather than shouts. So when you find yourself awake in those early hours, remember that countless people before you have sat in that same silence, asking the same questions, feeling the same stirrings. You are not alone in it. This time has always belonged to reflection, connection, and inner listening. And when approached with openness rather than fear, it can become one of the most grounding moments of the day. When we say overthinking is a cry for direction, we begin to see the mind not as an enemy, but as a confused guide. Overthinking is often misunderstood as unnecessary mental noise, something to be silenced or controlled. But overthinking does not come from nowhere. It comes from uncertainty. It comes from standing at an internal crossroads without clarity about which way to go. When the mind lacks direction, it does not rest. It searches. Throughout the day, you make countless decisions, big and small. You choose how to respond, what to ignore, what to accept, and what to suppress. Many of these choices are made quickly, without reflection, because life demands speed. But speed does not always bring alignment. So even though you move forward physically, mentally and emotionally you may feel stuck. That stuckness turns into overthinking at night. Overthinking often intensifies when something in your life feels unresolved or misaligned. You may be doing what is expected of you, but not what feels right. You may be moving forward, but without a clear sense of purpose. In such moments, the mind tries to compensate for the lack of direction by thinking more. It replays conversations, imagines outcomes, and analyzes possibilities, not because it enjoys chaos, but because it is trying to find a path. At night, especially between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., the mind is no longer distracted by tasks or conversations. The question of what am I doing with my life? Or is this the right path? Becomes louder. Overthinking is the mind's attempt to solve a problem without sufficient clarity. It is like being lost in a dark room and touching every wall, hoping to find the door. The movement feels frantic, but the intention is safety. Many people try to stop overthinking by forcing calm or distracting themselves. But this often makes it worse because it ignores the underlying need. Overthinking is not asking to be silenced, it is asking to be understood. It is saying, I don't know what to do next, or I'm unsure about this choice, or something here doesn't feel right. When the mind feels directionless, it stays alert because uncertainty feels dangerous. Another reason overthinking becomes intense at night is that the future feels heavier in silence. During the day, action gives the illusion of progress. At night, without action, uncertainty becomes visible. Questions about career, relationships, identity, and meaning surface because they have been postponed all day. Overthinking is not weakness. It is the mind's way of demanding clarity where there is confusion. It is also important to understand that overthinking often appears when intuition has been ignored for too long. You may sense that something needs to change, but you keep delaying it. The mind then steps in and starts analyzing every angle, hoping logic will replace intuition. But logic without direction only creates more loops. The more you think, the more overwhelmed you feel, not because thinking is bad, but because it is being used to avoid a deeper truth. Overthinking also reflects responsibility. People who care deeply tend to overthink more. They want to make the right choice. They want to avoid regret. They want certainty before moving forward. But life rarely offers certainty. Direction often comes from alignment, not from analysis. And when alignment is missing, the mind keeps searching, especially in the quiet hours. When you wake up at night overthinking, it is helpful to ask not, how do I stop this? But what is my mind asking for? Often it is asking for clarity, reassurance, or permission to choose differently. Sometimes it is asking you to slow down and reassess your direction. Overthinking softens when the mind feels guided, even if the path is not perfect. Clarity does not always come from answers. Sometimes it comes from honest questions. Questions like, what matters to me right now? Or, what am I avoiding deciding? Or, what would feel more aligned? Even if it feels uncomfortable. When these questions are acknowledged, the mind begins to relax because it feels heard. So when overthinking keeps you awake, remember that your mind is not broken. It is searching for direction in the absence of clarity. The more you offer yourself honesty and gentle guidance during the day, the less desperately your mind will need to search for it in the quiet of the night.